So I want to also welcome our first-time guests here. Thank you for being brave enough to stand up. It is so great to have you here. And if you resonate with the message today, or better yet, let me put it this way. If you kind of resonate with the message today, and just the general vibe of this community, please come back again, because I am not your regular gig here. I sort of am. I usually take the role that Reverend Karen does today, but we're kind of switching it around today because today is the 5th Sunday of the month, and we don't typically have a 5th Sunday. And when we do, I think sort of the trend is going to be that our two ministers sit down and enjoy themselves and allow the ministerial students to stand up and see what they have. So my request to you is to be tolerant as I sharpen those skills of public speaking, and yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So, welcome. It's great to have you back. Thank you, Bernice. And we also have Reverend Glenn that is visiting us today. It is good. There he is. Thank you, Reverend Glenn. It is great to have you here. He's part of the men's group as well, and his words of advice to me were, hey, Jeff, don't disappoint me. And I know he said that in love and in joy. So, one of the things that I often do when I'm up here on this platform is I bring my dad up here with me. And the reason that I do that is because I think my dad is a great mirror for me. I see a lot of myself in my dad, both the good and the not so good. But one of the things that I find so, for lack of a better word, adorable about my dad is that he finds joy in some of the most challenging circumstances. That if we are confronted with something that we might consider less than comfortable, he always brings an element to it that's either humorous or slightly wrong or something like that. So I really appreciate that in him. And one of the other things that I talk a lot about up here is my trip to New Orleans with him. We took 3 trips to New Orleans. I better say that right. Not New Orleans, New Orleans. And one of the times that we went, we visited an art school that had been condemned, and it was in shambles, and it had been flooded out. There was a lot of mold everywhere. And so in the midst of that, I can remember that we were walking all of the halls, and every time that we would come up to a flight of stairs, my dad would see it, and he would notice the railing that went down the stairs, and he was like, now that would be a good rail to slide down on. And he does that a lot. He does that a lot. And I have a picture of him here that kind of demonstrates that. And that wasn't just a pose. He went down that rail, and he ended up on the ground, but he popped back up and was and this typifies what I think of when I think of joy. You bring Annalise, I bring my dad up. Lots of different ways for joy. Ernest Holmes says this: we must learn to live by inspiration. That means that we should let the spiritual depths of our own being flow through our conversation and into our acts. Living by inspiration does not mean living chaotically. Our whole purpose is to make the intellect an instrument for the spirit. We must become artists in living. To live by inspiration means to sense the divine touch in everything, to enter into the spirit of things, to enter into the joy of living. That feels just really deeply sacred to me. It says to live by inspiration means to sense the divine touch in everything. And we feel that, don't we? We feel in those moments of perfect connection where we are connecting with others, we are connecting with that divine nature that is within, when we are just connecting on that level where there is no wrongdoing or right doing. We are just in that perfect place, right? And I know this, and I am completely immersed in this most of the time. And there are times when that sense of sacredness is on one side, and in between me and sacredness is something getting in the way. There's just something, whether it is that internal dialogue that's going on, or feedback that I'm receiving from others, or a general state of what I am seeing as a general state of the world. Whatever it is, there is sometimes challenge in finding that sacredness in everything. So my contention today is that we are not here to get comfortable with the current reality. We are not here to get comfortable with current reality. And that kind of sucks to just hear that sometimes. But here's what I appreciate so much in our leadership here, certainly with Reverend Leslie and Reverend Karen, is that there are no elephants in any room in this community. We are such that we address those things that make us feel uncomfortable. We address and lean into some of those ideas that we may have of ourselves that invoke shame or fear or lack and limitation. And we get to be with that together as a community. And there's good news to this. There is no challenge, no big problem, no sense of lack from a certain situation that is big enough that we can't also address that with our own internal self, with our own internal ideas and tools and spiritually divine, grounded self. That is the good news. And we need to address this in a place where not only do we transform from an experience that may be less than comfortable, but we transcend it. We go above it and beyond it. And I love what Reverend Penny used to say, that consciousness expanded never reverts back to its original form. I think she said it once, and I've said it over and over again. I think it's the truth of that. So there is an essential shift that I believe both needs to take place and is taking place in our perception of things. And I think it's primarily with how we perceive ourselves. It is going from that place of me and my to we and ours. Richard Bach is one of my favorite authors, and this is one of my favorite quotes. He says, "There is no such thing as a problem without a gift for you in its hands. You seek problems because you need their gifts." And I loved what Reverend Karen spoke to last week, where she presented some of those challenges and the associated the gifts, the divine gifts of the truth that we really are. And so today, I know we are highlighting the book, and it's not here. I can't even remember what it's called. So, Happy for No Reason. And I'm sure it's a great book. and I have not read it yet. I'll put that in line behind all of my academic books. So today we are going to be focusing on a book that is called, or some ideas around a book that is called Eye of the Storm by Gary Simmons, who is a minister, a unity minister. And specifically, he talks about the four winds of conflict. Or another way to put it is 4 false narratives that we have about ideas coming from that place of the me and my perspective, right? So I'm going to be talking to those today in view of that traditional sense of the me and my, and from that place that we often isolate ourselves and experience these fallacies in our life. And the first one is defensiveness. We like to justify ourselves a lot. We like to support our line of reasoning or our opinions in everything. And when they come in conflict with somebody else's opinion, we can almost feel it. There is that defensiveness that you can feel right here, or at least this is where I feel it. And I immediately, my bruised ego wants to defend it and justify it in every single way. Another one is competition. We have to be a winner at this. We have to be up on top. We have to be in that competitive spirit. And one of the best ones that Reverend Karen again was pulling up last week was that comparing thing that we do. Another one is a misperception. We are bombarded with stimuli every day. And what happens is in an attempt to cope with this, our brain will turn off a lot of those active stimuli that are all around us and narrow it down to a certain focused field so that we are approaching life in a way that we can deal with it without so much coming at us, and yet what it does is it takes us out of the bigger picture of things. And so we see this in a lot of different things too. It's not just the brain, it's in our social acts, it's in our social society as well, whether we are on the right side of the aisle or the left side of the aisle, that we are coming from the perspective of my side is right and I'm only going to focus on this and I'm not going to look at the other side or why they might be coming to this perspective, and just coming into that bigger picture. Another element to this is with social media and with Google and things like that, where we have, mathematical algorithms, thank you. We have algorithms that are in effect that actually see where we go and see the kind of ways that we lean and see the kind of things that engage us, and that's all that we see. Again, we don't see that bigger picture of what is being presented to us at all. And the last one is a sense of separation. Sense of separation from our good, a sense of separation from each other, sense of separation from that divine nature within. We're all familiar with that dark night of the soul that sometimes comes up that leaves us feeling isolated and abandoned. And so I want to acknowledge that that is a thing. And so that is it: defensiveness, competition, misperception, and separation. And when I look at these 4 things, I can see things like the government, not necessarily the current administration, has nothing to do with that. It's just the government as a whole. I see this certainly in sports, which is, I guess, acceptable. But I also see it in marketing, where we are bombarded with ideas of, if you are not here, if you do not engage this opinion, then you are lower than. And I certainly see it as a perspective from a man, and I've spoken to this as well, being put into that man box. I think that is something that the societal constructs create for men in society, that says that we must be this perfect being that is never wrong, never never loses, is always on top. So, they certainly wouldn't write, Gary wouldn't write a book without also having a means by which to address these things. And so we begin the first one with defensiveness. And with defensiveness, one of the ways to address this is through non-resistance. And a couple of months ago, I was in Colorado and doing my ministerial school thing. And so I attended the Mile High service, which is an amazing service. There are thousands of people there. And the co-senior minister there, Reverend Josh Reeves, had a talk that he came in with, and it was the Ten Commandments based on the Beatles. And it was a great talk, and basically what he did was he took titles to the songs and he made them commandments. And one of those commandments was let it be. And I love this one because as he spoke to it, it's not about letting go of something. It is, which kind of indicates that we're pushing it to the side, maybe pushing it down. Letting it be acknowledges that it is right there in front of us, that we can't avoid it, and we're acknowledging it. We're seeing it there. We're not pushing it aside. It's there. Eckhart Tolle says, this is such a great quote, "Only if you resist what happens are you at the mercy of what happens, and the world will determine your happiness in unhappiness." The next one is competition, and ways by which to address that is through a sense of purpose. When I think of that thing of comparing oneself, there is, to make it a little bit personal, there is some stuff that I've been challenged with in the past after either Reverend Leslie or Reverend Karen do a talk, and it's like, oh my God, I could never do something like that. And I compare myself, right? But we have gotten to the point now where we engage this idea of an ecclesiastic team as something that is so well-rounded and so unique in what each person brings to that. It feels like it's something special to me. And it comes into that place of we and ours that I look at it now. It is a unique thing, and it has purpose to it. And for each time that we talk about purpose, it is something that each one of us individually brings into this idea of what we once thought as competitive. We are looking at it in that sense of what do I have that is unique, that I bring into it, that is divinely guided, that is all my own. And it just eliminates that fear of competition and getting on top, and it grounds us in this element of wholeness and inclusion and joy. The last one, oh no, I still have sense of separation. Nope, misperception. So we address this idea around misperception with principle. And we can go in a lot of different directions with this kind of an idea or placing these principles in various places. But here's what it comes to. God is all there is. And that is the one principle that I feel like is that basis to everything. All of those other ones, flow and circulation and the good in our lives, feel like byproducts to this idea that God is one and in everything. And the last one is a sense of separation. And you would think that, what would be the first thing that comes to mind with a sense of separation? I didn't hear it, but a lot of times what I would consider that sense of separation is oneness. stepping into our oneness. But here's the thing about oneness, is that it already is. It already is a principle. It already is something that is established. We may not see it from our human eyes, but we know it intuitively that there is a oneness to everything. But we're talking about the action that we step into to address this sense of separation, and that is through communion. There is that activity that we engage in that is either through prayer or meditation or visioning or whatever it is, or seeing the sacred in everything that we encounter, even on our walks as we are walking through, we come into that place of sacredness that every person that we see, every activity we see is sacred. And that is a grounding perspective that immediately fulfills that void that comes from feeling separate from one another. And so, I have some invitations for us today. What do you think my first invitation is going to be? Communion. Yes, that's very good. And we have some things to support that idea around meditation and visioning or prayer. And here's the thing, something that Reverend Leslie said probably a couple of weeks ago in our in that book study that we did, Dare to Lead, thank you. If you are coming from that place where you can't meditate because of the monkey mind, or you see squirrels, or you see, shiny lights here and there, I'm going to call BS on you. Because we all have that. Thank you, Leslie, for that one. We all have that. We all engage in that monkey mind, and it's distracting, and it's what we as human beings deal with. Everybody does. And so one of the invitations that I have for you is come and join us for that 7 a.m. meditation. We have it every morning. It is online. You can be in your pajamas, and you can just sit and be. And I'm going to be doing it next week. So if for whatever reason my voice is annoying or you don't do guided meditations well, turn it down or off. You are being with the presence of your community. You are meditating with other like-minded individuals, and there is something that is deepening to that thing, that the two or more coming together in the name of Spirit. The other invitation that I have is next week we are starting a new partnership, and this is something that I wanted to speak to as well. But we are starting a new partnership with our community outreach, and that is with St. Vincent de Paul. Another element to this idea of practicing is to be in service with each other and for each other. And this is, again, not something that we come from where I'm helping you. It is coming from that place where we are all equals. And with St. Vincent de Paul, we will be visiting them and volunteering or being in service in the soup kitchen. And if you want to experience God and no lack of separation whatsoever, then experience it through the eyes of somebody that is there that you are serving, because you can see the absolute divine in their eyes when you are open to it, and know that we are all in service of each other. Sound good? Let's take that into prayer. And so I acknowledge that there is that one presence, that one mind that is available to every single one of us because it is internal. It is who and what each one of us are. It is who and what we do. It is who and what we are intuitively. And I recognize that because this includes all things, that I too am part of this, that within me is that source of good and love and joy around every corner, around every situation, even in the midst of challenge and resistance. God is there. And so I speak a word right here and right now for each one of us, that we recognize that this life is a miracle, that this life, even in the face of challenges, is an evolutionary process. And we are evolving into that highest ideal of who we can be and who we are. And what a joy that is. It simply puts the joy in our life. And so I acknowledge that, and I am overwhelmed with that feeling of gratitude for all that it has to share with me, for each individual within the sound of my voice, and the honor of knowing each one of these beloveds. I give grateful thanks. And I release this word to universal action and law, knowing that Spirit says, yes, my beloved, just as you wish. And I call it good. And so it is.